This is the Night Shift Podcast, powered by Black and Gold Banneret, your home for news and analysis from all UCF night sports. The Night Shift starts now.
Oh, it does it ever! Eric Lopez here with Mr. Bryson Turner. Holy cow, we don't know what kind of show this is going to be like after what we just witnessed in Tempe, Arizona, where UCF loses to Arizona State 35-31, the final. Game that had a little bit of everything, that certainly has a lot of questions to be asked and commented. Kyle Nash will join us later on. We will take your questions and your comments in the chat room as well as on social media. We will have it all for you. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's where I have all the Night Shift shows here, as well as post-game interviews and much more. We will, of course, go to blackandgoldbanneret.com. Kyle Nash, as we speak, is working on his night class. Boy, those grades ought to be something from this game. He will join us a little after he's done with that. So certainly, so many comments. Bryson, good to talk to you. 24 hours ago, we were in a good mood leaving the basketball arena after a UCF basketball game, and, well, we're not anymore.
Yep, you absolutely, Eric. I don't know about you or other people, but I am indignant, outraged, infuriated, furious, irritable, rabid, sore, livid, riled, fuming, irate, and enraged, angered, mad, just exasperated. Just I can rattle off the entire thesaurus at this freaking point, because this is an absolute travesty of a football game scenario that we ended up finding ourselves in with this. This is snatching victory, defeat away from the jaws of victory at this point. At this point, the fact that, you know what's funny? As soon as I saw that graphic come up on the ESPN2 broadcast of Arizona State getting all those points in the last 4 minutes in the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half, I'm like, this feels like subtle foreshadowing. And then lo and behold, they block that punt directly after that. And I can't believe it. I literally can't believe it. And we saw the pass game. The Dylan Risk had a good game. You look at the yardage, like you look at the yards, 406 yards. Does that look like a team that lost this game to you? That's what I think angers me the most at this point, is we came into Tempe. We took advantage of an Arizona State team that didn't have its best player, and we had the lead, and we blew it. In multiple instances, we blew it. UCF blew it. In what you could say it was the block, you could say it was the pick six, you could say it was just moving out of the end zone, you could say it was running out clock, you can say like it is a comedy of errors that resulted in this loss happening today. And has now basically put UCF on, they have to win out in order to make a bowl, which we've said, I think, or at least I've said it anyway, is the barometer for success in this season. To me, is just make a bowl game. And now that might not even be happening. So I know we've been like, it's hard to find words, Eric. It really is, because how could they just didn't execute? There was the penalties. Oh yeah, I haven't even mentioned the penalties yet. 80 penalty yards, almost double the penalty yardage. There are so many ways in which UCF outperformed this Arizona State team, but in the end, they ended up shooting themselves in the foot, not once, not twice. They basically shot themselves twice in each foot. That I think is the best way to
maybe the more appropriate term would be they stick a fort into their foot. Get it? Arizona State.
Oh yeah, that's a
look, here's the bottom line, and we're going to get into all of it, what you just said. We'll break it all down. Good teams find a way to win. Not so good teams don't find a way to lose. That was the story of this game. Arizona State's been a better team all year. They did not play great today. They were shorthanded. They found a way. UCF played well in a lot of instances, but they found ways to lose this game in a lot of fascinating ways to go. It's pretty remarkable to me. Special teams, block punt for a touchdown, tied the game up at 7. You have a missed field goal 2 missed field goals, excuse me, right? He missed 2 field goals.
Yep.
One off the post. The other one was like a 57-yarder, which
that was also off the post.
Okay. There was one that was just wide. But yeah, it was 2 missed field goals. You had a kickoff return where for some reason you took it out and got stuck at the 1, which would set up a disastrous play, the pick 6, which I'm still floored. I'm still floored by that call.
I have a feel
at the 1 yard line. Arizona State just used their timeout to challenge whether the returner was in the end zone or was not, which was clearly he was not. So it was whatever. He's trying to do something because he's thinking, Kenny Dillingham, he's thinking, I'm going to use this timeout because that's the only chance I have to do something here before the half, because obviously UCF's going to run the ball out in here and go to the locker room, right? No, we didn't. We decided to throw. We decided to throw the ball with a redshirt freshman who, of course, makes a mistake and throws a pick 6. And you cough up 14 points within 10 seconds. You trail at the half, a half that you basically outplayed the team. And it's hard to win games when you spot teams to a couple of scores like that. And boy, it's just there's some head-scratching decisions. Certainly a lot of people will be commenting about the Wild Night. We'll get into that as well. But yeah, man, I understand your frustration. This was a tough one to swallow. But again, we've seen it before. They just can't close games out. They find a way. And boy. Now let me say this. I think, and again, I'm up against you and Kyle and everybody else on this. I don't really care about the bowl game. Care less. The one thing I am pleased is I do like Dylan Risk and how he played. And to me, I keep playing him. I don't think this game was his fault. I don't even blame him on the pick 6, even though, yes, he didn't see the defender for Arizona State. He should not have been put in that position to begin with. The positive why I'm feeling good is I actually think we have a quarterback for next year, Bryson. I do. I like Dylan. Yeah. I think he's made some good throws. And Arizona State threw a lot of different stuff at him. He really has good chemistry with Jacoby Jones, spreads the ball well. I do. That's why I am not like flipping out like everybody else is, because to me, the season ended weeks ago. It ended weeks ago. And a lot of this you're playing for 2025. And I think as long as we feel good about the quarterback position, and that's my question to everybody in the chat room, we're 2 starts. I understand it's just 2 starts, but do you feel good about Dylan Risk moving forward? And I actually like how they've used Jakari Brown as the red zone quarterback. I don't know if that's a long-term thing, but nonetheless, I think they've done a good job with the quarterbacks, where to me, the quarterback did not cost him the game. I think things around him, play calling, etc., certainly did cost him the game. But what is your thoughts on Dylan Risk here, Bryson? You saw him up close in person and take over at the end of the BYU game when he led him to a couple of scores. You saw him in person start against Arizona, get the win, and now you see him tonight. Do you feel pretty good about at least Dylan Risk and the quarterback situation moving forward?
Yes, absolutely. The only concern I would really have is any chemistry that he would have to form with new receivers. That's the biggest issue. I think as far as Dylan Risk's quarterbacking skills, I am perfectly fine with that. The problem is that he's not going to have Kobe Hudson or Jacoby Jones next year. He'll have Randy Pittman at least, hopefully. So I think that will at least be a solid little connection to start, but he's going to need to make connections with whole different receivers.
Yeah, but that's normal for every quarterback. I don't think that's something that's typical normal stuff that happens in college. I don't think, especially in this day and age, who knows who's back, who's not, and all that. But he should be, to me, and people can see if they disagree or not, he should go into 2025 as the starting quarterback if he finishes this season playing well like he has, to me, in the last couple games.
Yeah, and same. I agree with that as well. I mean, obviously, I think EJ Colson is going to push him as well.
Fair. No, that's
And then
fair.
I think that's also going to be very important. But Dylan Risk, I think, is going to have a similar maybe momentum that Mikey Keene sort of had. I would say after in a few years ago when people got to see him play an extended amount of time and thus was more inclined to want to see him play. When the starting quarterback came back, I feel like that's a little bit of aspect to this as well. But I feel like that if Dylan Risk continues to play well, then especially here, I mean, we actually did well in a road game, Eric. I mean, the fact that Dylan Risk, a redshirt freshman, has done this well in a road game, I am very happy to see that happen.
Agreed.
So if he continues to play this well the rest of the way, then absolutely I think he'll go into the offseason as kind of the favorite to get the starting quarterback job. Now, does that mean that EJ Colson might maybe make a move during the offseason? Maybe that's possible as well. But I think if Gus Malzahn, if he sticks around next season, has shown anything, it's that he is able to incorporate two quarterbacks into his system very well. And he's proven that with Jakari Brown, who finally, I mean, he tried to do this with Joey Gatewood and a few years ago and it didn't work out. But I think he finally made that red zone quarterback idea work, and it's done very well for him in red zone play, which is what we were worried about with UCF. UCF in the red zone had been a bit of an issue for him. So give Dylan Risk more time to learn red zone conditions and be able to do that, and let Jakari just do what he does best, which is run the dang ball or make people think he's running the dang ball. Because when you got another runner like RJ Harvey out there, then you don't know who's going to take it, and both of them could easily get through your defense. And by the way, RJ Harvey, need I say more? I mean, another 100-yard game, 15th for his career. He has another 3 rushing touchdown game. He now has 40 on his career. He is now joins Kevin Smith as the only running backs in UCF history to have 40 or more rushing touchdowns. He could probably pass Kevin Smith at some point this year with how many games are left. So
well, he's got only 2 officially right now. So you're banking on him scoring 5-6 touchdowns in the last 2 games, assuming they don't go to a bowl game.
That
would be the track, but we'll see what happens. But
look, considering how many times that he has scored thus far, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility here.
It's not, but unfortunately for him, it's all in a losing effort.
And, I mean, he won't be back next year. It's Alex Haynes all over again.
He's Alex Haynes. That is correct. I agree. That's a better. Yeah.
It is an absolute talent of a running back that is just absolutely wasted on a team that is not being clearly not being coached to its best potential, and is a team that snatches defeat out of the jaws of victory. And I want to ask you like what about Kevin Smith's teams? Because I don't know if I want to do Kevin Smith comparison too much, because he obviously, he has so much more yardage on him than RJ.
Kevin Smith literally carried the team. Like, this is the thing. Why, with respect to RJ has had better quarterback play. Like, John Rice Plumlee was better than Kyle Israel. They got better receivers than Kevin Smith had. The receivers for UCF during Kevin, especially in 2007, when Kevin Smith had the historic year, was below average. I mean, I would argue the second best offensive player in 2007 for UCF was an offensive lineman, Josh Sitton. And he carried him to a conference championship. And he ran over Texas. He ran over NC State. So you can't tell me, well, it was a schedule or whatever. I mean, he was just a one of a kind. And, he led him to that conference championship. That was not a great UCF team in 2007. Not even close. But, like, they don't even come close to winning the conference title with him. And that's why he's the guy. I mean, he should have, if he had that kind of year and UCF was in the Big 12, he would have been a Heisman finalist. I mean, he should have been. But, again, that's not RJ's fault. RJ's good. And I think RJ certainly is. I think Alex Haynes is good. I mean, Alex Haynes was a great back. I covered Alex Haynes, and he just didn't have great teams around him. And that's pretty much the same with RJ, as he did not have good teams around him at the end of the day. So let's get to some questions here. Somebody's asked, Garrett asking about Bryson. See if you have a better memory. You're younger than me. He's asking about why wasn't the scoop and score reviewed? What's he talking? Which play?
I think I know what he's talking about because I actually thought about this when I saw the play. I honestly thought the Arizona State player stepped out of bounds on the return for a second, but which I could potentially see as what.
Well, they usually review on a scoring play just because they don't necessarily announce it. So in other words, somebody probably did check it and they're like, yeah, he's good. Like it's not like oh, you gotta like challenge it. Like usually somebody's looking at that. It's one of those like it's kind of weird. They're not consistent on that, but I'm pretty sure that was reviewed. Or somebody not maybe officially like, hey, we're reviewing the play, but somebody upstairs. Like if they saw something, they're like, hey, maybe he stepped out, they would have stopped it.
Yeah, no, you're right. He also commented that loss is on the coaching staff.
The staff certainly a tough one.
The staff contributed to it, that's for sure. But look, I mean, there are moments where like we got to remember that these are obviously college kids, and so you don't want to dogpile on them. But by the same token, like the mistakes made on the pump block and the taking the ball out of the end zone, you just don't do that. Like those are the kinds of mental errors that you can't really blame entirely on coaching.
By the way, some of these players now get compensated, so it's just not the days. They're getting compensated, because part of the deal. Look, it's a combination. I think everybody owns it in a situation like that. We'll see what happens there. What a game! Multiple mistakes. That halftime mess up. Damn frustrating. That's flies with that comment. Yeah, I mean, right. So to me, I go back to the end of the first half. You were up. You get the ball after Arizona State scores. It's 17-14. You controlled the first half. Yes, the mistake happens on the kickoff at the 1 yard line, but Arizona State used their one timeout on the running play. You have a great back. Now, there's two things that bother me here. And Rod Gilmore made a point about this. It drives me nuts that these teams cannot play have a simple play where they can just go under center and hand off the ball. Everything's got to be shotgun. Everything's got to be spread. That drives me nuts. So that's one thing. But then the second thing is, why are we throwing the ball there? Just hand the ball, give the ball to RJ Harvey. He's your best player. He might break one for a few yards, 20, 30, 40 yards. You don't know. Why not give him the ball? What was your thoughts there as you were seeing that unfold?
Just absolutely and flies, I think is just right. This is damn frustrating. I read the thesaurus earlier, but I mean, it's just adding on to it at this point. T. Pennington commented, brutal. Yeah, that's another word to describe this football game. You got to have Brown in on both those fourth quarter rushing sequences to give the defense two things to think about. Wildcat makes no sense. Absolutely. Matt J. Interesting. Thanks for doing the show. You're welcome. We love doing it, despite the fact that because it helps us vent just as much as you guys. I'm the only one who's been saying this for 3 years. Fire Blackman and relegate him to TEs. Our special teams have been, it's interesting actually, because I was looking at Twitter during a break in the game, and I found former UCF punter Mac Loudermilk actually echoing sentiment kind of like that, where he was talking about how having a special teams coordinator being another position coach is a disservice to the fact that, special teams is 1/3 of the game, and you should have somebody that is solely focused on that type of thing. I don't know what your position is on that, Eric, but
I hate alums dogging the program. First of all, I think that's terrible. Support the damn program. I'm not saying you have to be like all positive and everything, but there's probably a reason why Coach Blackman's doing multiple positions. It's probably financial. Like, it's not that simple. Like, everybody thinks you can just hire. They say we're not an SEC school. Number one, and I don't think that's why the special teams is. I think that's a cop out. this ain't the only program that has coaches that coach. How come we don't say that about the defensive coordinators when they're coaching linebackers or the defensive back? What's the difference? Or what about an offensive coordinator that's coaching the quarterbacks, or maybe he's coaching the receivers? I don't know. I think that's a cop-out. Special teams is what it is. And now I think it's fair to say that it hasn't been great the last few years. It hasn't been special. It hasn't been remarkable. Again, block punt. I believe it's the second one this year that they've had. No, they had 3 block field goals in that TCU game. You had a block punt here. Again, I don't know if a freshman kid should know better than I don't know what a coach could do there. How many times you're going to tell a kid, hey, take a knee there in the end zone? I think he just panicked. I don't think coaching really plays a factor there. But listen, feel free to donate and maybe they'll put him in special teams specific positions. We'll have to look at that. Like I said, I don't think that's exclusive thing to UCF. I think that's but again, I have a problem more with alums being negative, and there's a few out there that tend to be very negative. And most of them really didn't play a lick in the NFL, which is kind of funny. I don't know, there's a bitterness there. Anyway, that's right. This ain't that, like I said, I think to me, I think the special teams will certainly probably be addressed in the offseason. I mean, I don't, that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. Matt J does point out paying $1 million to a D coordinator who's not coaching.
Thank you. Again, that's to me. Again, there's finances that I'm sure are in play here when it comes down to coordinators and everything now. And the other thing is they've now added where these extra assistants can now coach the analysts and all that. So I don't even buy that anymore, Bryson. I think there's more bodies now that can help you coach in a lot of ways. But listen, I understand the frustration about the special teams for sure. It's you can't block punt, 2 missed field goals. Now the field goal misses. Reddick, I did not agree with going at the 57-yarder at the time. And then the other one, he just missed it. I mean, that happens.
Yeah. Russell commented, yeah, that back and forth scoring was nice, but we needed to make better decisions. Yeah, I think in whether it was the coaching or the players in the heat of the moment, decision making definitely is what it came down to. I think depending on who it was different people with different decisions, but sure. Decisions definitely a big one. I'm so sorry I confused you, T. Pennington. It was a bit. I had to express my frustration in so many different ways. Jeff Wiseman commented, this loss is 100% on the coaching staff.
Good to see Jeff again, loyal listener.
Indeed, thank you. I mean, yes and no. I think that the coaching staff definitely is very much responsible for the loss, but like Eric said earlier, there's a difference where
it's on all of them. By the way, I'm not defending the coaches. I'm just saying it's on everybody. I don't think players should just get should just get a pass. That's all.
Matt J commented, this was a rough loss. Really says a lot about the team letting this one go, especially with no Scatabo. Yeah, I mean, you look at the stats. They held Kyson Brown to 73 yards. Sam Levitt only rushed the ball for 22 yards the entire night. Lee Hunter and like the defensive tackles, once again, just Ricky Barber and Lee Hunter did an absolutely amazing job on this one. I mean, to see Lee Hunter just chasing Levitt down on that one play to get him to throw the ball away, pretty much, that was absolutely amazing defensive play right there.
They did a good job containing Levitt. Brooks, you could see the drop off between Scatterbo and Brooks. Brooks had no movement. He just ran up the middle. He was pretty simple to tackle. I think, UCF did a nice job stopping the run, but I wonder, it would be a different game, I think, if Scatterbo was healthy. So UCF took advantage of that from that standpoint, but they didn't take advantage of it enough.
Jeff Wiseman says, do we not have anything more creative than RJ Harvey taking a direct snap on 4th and 2? Where's Jakuri on that play?
I don't even know about the Jakari part, but I think it's fair to question why you're running 2 wild nights back to back there in back-to-back drives. Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, the first one I don't have as big of a problem. All right, you're going with your best player, is going to get the ball and everything, but then you try it again the second time. Arizona State stuffed it both times. So I that is very bizarre. But again, your best player got the ball.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. That's why I personally think that doing the Wild Night was like, a good idea in theory. It's just that they didn't make it. It's just that they didn't make the play.
I wouldn't have done it the second time because they figured it. They stopped you on the first one. Why do it again? I would not have done it the second one. I mean, and I'm not saying that you're wrong if you didn't like the first one. I'm just saying, why do it the second time when they stopped you the first time? That was very dissatisfactory.
Yeah, extremely so. Brown also handled the red zone pretty good. Oh yeah, definitely. That was great. Eric Edwards is in the comment section today. I'm a bit frustrated. A bit's an understatement over here, Edwards. Sorry, got to make sure I address which Eric I'm speaking to with that one. Slice, I like swapping and switching up the quarterbacks. Oh yes, very much so. I mean, very much so. I mean, look, I'm somebody who grew up with Tim Tebow at Florida, and so when I looked at the history with him and switching with Chris Leak, I love the idea of switching quarterbacks, like especially if it works right. So, absolutely. Jeff Wiseman feels good about risk going forward. Nice to see. Matt J. RJ is by far our best player, putting in his hands when the game is on the line. Don't hate that Wildcat.
Yep. Yeah, that's why I don't have an issue with it. It's your best player. Now, again, it didn't work the first time. Why do it a second time? That's my only question.
Yeah. Fry Size comments, I think Risk will do good at West Virginia and Utah. Utah.
Yeah, I mean, Utah, I'm watching right now. They're playing BYU as we record this in the Holy Wall. But, yeah, I mean, I think, look, I've said it and I'll say it again. If you come out of this year at least feeling good about your quarterback position, I think that's not the worst thing in the world. I think I understand we're going to get into this whole bowl eligibility stuff, but I'd rather know who my quarterback is next year than not knowing who my quarterback is and playing in a meaningless December bowl game.
Jeff Wiseman says RJ's our best player, but put JB in to take the snap and attempt to keep the defense guessing. You're not wrong on that, but here's the thing: is I feel like that one thing that this coaching staff maybe is not not really good with. It's taking something that applies in one situation and applying it to something else. I think that there has to have been some kind of mandate or something in the coaching staff where Jakari Brown only gets on the field in the red zone. And so since that Wild Night play was not
here's my other question. Did anybody have a problem with the trick play?
Which one?
The one where they hit Pittman.
Do you have any idea how little that narrows it down?
Well, no, the trick play where it actually worked, where they hit Pittman deep, the reverse. You know what I mean? I'm talking about?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
They got cute there, and it worked on the flea flicker, I think it was. So when it works, people don't have a problem with it. If that didn't work, if it doesn't work, then people flip out. I think that's the story with the Wild Night and the two plays there. I would not have called it the second time, but I don't know. It's again, you've got Tim Harris, his first year now, calling plays a couple games in. You're probably not going to be perfect. And who knows what else. I thought defensively they made plays. I thought Addison called some good blitzes. But they didn't get the big stops. Boy, you mentioned this, Bryson. We were talking off air. Arizona State's really good in the red zone, aren't they? They really know what they're doing. They know what they want to do in the red zone, which sometimes you wonder if other teams don't.
Yeah, I remember talking about that during the podcast when we previewed this game. And yeah, I mean, I think that Gus did an absolutely great counter to that with Jakari. So I think absolutely well done there. SKDC 96 commented, we are number one when it comes to losing in any way possible. Yep. I mean, you name a way to lose a football game, and UCF's probably found a way in the last between this year and last year. I mean, just Matt J commented, I'm fine with giving it right to RJ and giving the time to develop a play. plus decrease the chance of a screw up on a handoff.
That's going to be the hot question tonight, isn't it, Bryson?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of what if questions for tonight. For example, what if you call a timeout and not let the clock run down 40 seconds? What if you get the ball and knee it in the end zone? What if you block a punt? And what if you block players from blocking a punt? Is frustrating, I think, for a lot of people with this one is that this isn't a total team failure. This is just a series of, this is maybe a death by 1,000 cuts almost type of thing, or at least a death by just a few cuts that cut deep enough to sink the whole thing. I think that also puts
But hasn't that been the story all year?
I mean, offensively, I feel like RJ Harvey was really the only thing that consistently worked every time. So I feel like that offensive stuff might have been a total down situation. So I don't know if I would say that necessarily. I mean, the only other way I could say this is turnovers, but the difference is that this isn't because with turnovers, you can at least have the defense just making a good play being part of the equation. But here we stuck a fork in our foot. We stuck a fork in our eye. We stuck a fork in a lot of different places where forks should not be stuck. So I think that kind of explains that. Creighton Barr, offensive play calling this week. There was some honestly.
Yeah, it's going to get questioned. I mean, obviously, people are going to question the two Wild Night plays. People are going to question, I'm sure, certain things, but I don't know what you think of the play calling overall there. I mean, obviously, the one at the 1 yard line is just I can't believe it. I still can't believe that, Bryson.
I still think that in the situation, look, I've seen people go for pass plays in the end in that area before in the NFL and football. I remember.
Yeah, if you have a veteran quarterback, why? And the other team didn't have a timeout. All you had to do just take it, run the ball, make sure you don't take a safety. And then when they're going to throw the ball and he throws it quick, and it's just and then here's the other thing, right? I mean, here's the other reason why I have this problem with that play call. That's the one I'm more bothered by that than the other stuff. I know Kyle, if we get Kyle at some point, we'll talk about the Wild Night stuff. But let's just say he throws the ball and it's not intercepted, but it's incomplete. Now you've stopped the clock on third down. Why? Just go to the locker room. You have the lead. There was nothing positive you could get there. I would have handed it off to RJ there. Maybe he breaks one. He ain't, he's good enough so he can break a 30, 40 yarder. Maybe think your game, think your strategy a little bit. That's the one that's I'm just going to scratch my head the whole time when that play. That's what I'm going to remember about this game forever.
Yeah, absolutely. SKDC says we are not winning in West Virginia 5-7 this season. I mean, look, the thing is that I actually think that aside from the really stupid mistakes that we made in this game, this should have been a win. So I think that it's still possible to win in West Virginia. The question is this team going to execute? And unfortunately, I can't say that, but sometimes it's just a matter of, just not making mistakes. And sometimes you're going to make a mistake unless you make them. I mean, I think back to the World Series and Aaron Judge would make catches in the outfield like a billion times over the course of a season. And in one moment he missed one, and that ended up leading to, Yankees losing the World Series or helping Yankees lose the World Series. So, you're not going to make a mistake until you do. And that's just what ended up happening here. Fry says, if I could change one thing about the game, it would be that taking the ball out of the end zone. Oh yeah, absolutely. That exactly the same thing with me. I feel like that mistake right there is the one that is the most correctable, I think, or at least the easiest thing to not do to me. The easiest thing to not do is take the ball out of the end zone. You do that, and I think we're in a completely different.
Again, it didn't have to hurt you if you don't throw the ball there. That's the point. If you run it out, it doesn't matter. That's the problem.
But again, you put him in a specific like pressure scenario because you're worrying about his safety. They're also probably wanting to score too. They're also probably wanting to score too. There was
right,
still time.
But you know what? You can't. So you just get out of there with the lead at the half. It happens.
Arizona State would get the ball back.
No, they were not. They were going to be without timeouts. You go to the halftime.
No, get the ball back after the half.
You know what? Arizona State didn't score when they got the ball back. So you still, you don't throw the ball there. You don't. No, I'm not going to blame. Yes, it was a mistake to get the ball, the special teams at the 1. It doesn't excuse the throw. It doesn't excuse the play call. It just doesn't. You can't do that.
But we've still seen that stuff happen before. We've still seen that play be called before. Where you've
got a quarterback that is literally making his second start, his first start on the road. He's not. If it's a senior, I understand. If it's a guy that's had 40 starts on his belt, okay, I can at least understand that. You can't put him in that situation there. I mean, it's
the same quarterback. You mean the same quarterback that's been having a really good game the entire game?
Yeah, the same quarterback that's literally played 2 games, who's due to make a mistake because he's a kid. Yes, that kid. Yes, absolutely. Do not put him in that spot. Do not put him in that spot. I would not have done that.
All right. I agree to disagree on that. But Act for UCF, we are better than West Virginia, but are so self-destructive. Not even I can say we beat them. We will outplay and outgame them like most games, though. Yeah, I think that kind of sums up, I think, what I was kind of saying earlier, where I think we can outplay them similarly to what we did tonight. But the problem is that are we going to actually make decisions that will actively help us win, or will we going to make decisions that will give the game to another opponent? So, yeah, I think that sums it up pretty well.
All right, let's hear Gus Malzahn with his opening statement in beautiful Tempe, Arizona, courtesy of our good friend Trace Trunco, who's out there in Tempe, Arizona. Let's see what Gus had to say here in the opening statement.
And something like that, and we chose to kick a field goal, and I think hit the upright. They went and drove the. Okay, obviously another disappointing loss. We got off to a good start. Had the lead. They had a punt block for a touchdown that hadn't happened all year, uncharacteristic. Then we had a returner. We were going to fair catch it, and I think he bobbled it or whatever. We got the ball on the 1 foot line, and we threw a pick six, the next play. And they had the momentum coming out of half, but our guys did a really good job coming out of half to get the momentum back. And I really think a big part of the game is we're up by 3. We had the ball on about the 30, 33-yard line, something like that. And we chose to kick a field goal, and I think hit the upright. They went and drove the field. And then, they took the lead right there, and it was tough after that. But our guys fought hard, but we didn't play good enough to win. This is what I told our guys. I mean, the penalties really make me sick. I mean, that was a tough deal. And I'll say this about anytime you got a quarterback, which I thought Dylan battled. He did some really good things, but you got a quarterback for the first time on the road. There's a lot of logistics, and as far as the communication, everything goes. And I know we had some false starts, especially early, but that many penalties, that's not good. Bottom line, we didn't do what it took to win the game. They did. Give them credit. Another disappointing loss for us. Question.
That was Gus Nick there with his comments there, opening statement. We'll try to get some more Gus. Obviously, I'm sure he'll get asked about specific plays. And as soon as we see that, we will try to run those plays there, Bryson. But quote, the penalties made me sick. That was a Gus Malzahn quote there. Let's bring in a man who's just as sick right now. He just finished writing his article. Mr. Kyle Nash reporting. How you doing, sir?
What's going on, gentlemen? A lot of stuff to talk about with this particular contest, isn't there?
A lot. Let's get into it. Give me your thoughts here. You've had time to digest this. You've written about it here, blackgillbanner.com. What jumps out to you? A lot of people are upset about, obviously, the coaching staff, the play calling. We're going to break some of those down. Bryson and I just argued about the end of the half and how it was handled. We'll ask you about that. But I want first your overall thoughts in general.
First of all, I'm going to say the end of the half lost the football game. That's where I'm at. And I'll build on that because and I know there are people out there that will kick and scream, but Kyle, there's so much. What about, listen, I say that there too, just because of all the blunders that took place all simultaneously, right? And listen, I had asked Coach about special teams, kind of being a liability lately. If you saw on the Black and Gold Banner at YouTube channel, where during his weekly presser, and he acknowledged, listen, he was complaining about Trent Whittemore letting things go over his head, gave up a 71-yard punt last week. Now, granted, you could hide that sort of thing when you're playing a deflated team like an Arizona Wildcat squad, Eric. But if you remember from night class last week, I gave special teams a C overall. The punting game, obviously, for UCF hit a lot of the other coverage things that were bad, but just colossal blunders left and right in this game. I know the block punt was probably the worst block attempt. I'm not even going to call it thrown in 2024 by a UCF Knight. I'm sure Bryson has thrashed that point to great extent, and he should. But that, for me, that extra 7 points that the defense had to try to recover, essentially, I think it was that final stretch that made it too long. And we can get into other nitpicks in the fourth quarter that came up. But listen, when you dig yourself a 14-point hole, it's really hard to dig out. Think about this, gentlemen, right? The UCF Knights averaged just over 5 points a quarter allowed defensively, and yet somehow they were losing at the top of the fourth quarter. Makes no sense.
Absolutely. You're right about that.
Kyle, let's get into the end of the half. Bryson blames more Peterson on the mishap on the return. You heard Gus Malzahn said it was supposed to be a fair catch, but he bobbled the ball. He panicked. The kid, and he obviously took it out when he shouldn't have. He didn't have to. He got it to the 1 yard line. My thing is that play's irrelevant if you just run the ball out of there 2 plays after Arizona State used their timeout. Second down, all you got to do is run 2 plays. I mean, let's not even get started on the idiotic step that nobody can get under center in a situation. Everything's got to be a freaking shotgun because everybody is a cute spread offense. Oh, the revolutionary. Give me a break. That's one other. That's not a UCF thing. That's a whole college football issue.
Yeah, that's college football. I think you're right, Eric.
No, yeah. Stupidity. Stupidity is what it is. Nonsensical crap. But that being said, you have the best player on your team is being the backfield. A guy that you guys are trying to make the case is one of the greatest of all time at the running back position. Give him the ball twice there. Get out of there with the lead at the half. There's no reason to throw the ball there. None. I will remember that call when this game ever comes up. I think it's one of the most just befuddling play calls I've ever seen. And it always comes back to hunch. I think that's the point you're making, Kyle. When you make mistakes like that, it's hard to overcome that. You've got to be really special to overcome something, especially on the road. I can't believe you just can't do that. You gave them all the momentum. Even Gus mentioned that. Your thoughts on those 2 sequences, the return. Bryson blames more the return. I blame more the play call specifically. I'm not saying Dylan is obviously you don't throw that, but he's a kid. He's making his second start. You're going to make mistakes, which is why you don't put him in that position to throw. Your thoughts?
Yeah, listen, I mean, you got a whole lot of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I get where Bryson Turner's coming from, and I might even give a slight edge to the situation there, because if you're a punt returner, listen, you have one job in a kickoff scenario. If you're remotely confused, you stop, you drop. I don't know if you want to roll, but that's how you prevent a fire, okay? Is you just stay in the damn end zone and kneel. No matter what you do, if you've never left the end zone, so long as you fall on that humpy bumpy, you got it right, technically. And I think that's where Bryson, to me, it's
the worst mistake to me.
It's correct. It's the worst mistake. It's the bigger blunder. Now, in the case of throwing the pass, the argument could be made, well, you catch them off guard. The difference there, Eric, which you're 100% right about. Like, let's be honest. This is in the bowels of probably all-time football calls made. Like, I'm not going to go too nutty here, but like The first thing that came to my mind was Pete Carroll not running the football in the Super Bowl with Marshawn Lynch. Okay.
Don't remind me of that.
That ain't nobody in America likes it. Now we got to suffer Tom Brady with people alleging he's the GOAT, but this isn't the show to hack that up. The punchline's this, guys. With that play call, you put a guy with his first road start in a position to be in big trouble. Arizona State feels dominated. They have a chance. They're going to be opportunistic with this little time on the clock because what could go wrong? They have a chance to take a lead in a game where they have been, in fact, dominated. Of course, they're going to come out with their ears pinned back. These are all things that good offensive coordinators should know. And if you've actually prepared for this game, you aren't ever going to think Arizona State is on their heels. This is a team that's been underestimated from literally moment one being predicted to be one of the worst teams in the league. Hell, even by me. Okay? Let me be clear about that. And they've come out. People are talking about dark horse championship chances. They're playing on house money in their minds. They're sending the house in this humpy bumpy. So much coaching failure is here. Bryson's right. It is the dumber mistake, air quotes, but this is still a colossal coaching blunder to Tim Harris. And I think the reason why I think that mistake is worse, Bryson, has machinations that take place later in the game. We'll get to that later.
My point is, you run the ball there, get out of the half. We're not harping on the special teams blunder there at the return.
Yeah, well, and somebody made the silly point. Well, what if somebody stops RJ Harvey in the backfield? Fine. At least you're still winning the damn football game at that point.
And at least they're stopping your best player. And RJ's good. Yeah. I mean, well, no, we'll get to.
I can't use that argument because that'll come up again later. I predict you're failing. More on that later. Yeah.
I still stand by the fact that if the worst mistake was your first mistake, then even if you make a littler mistake later, the first mistake is more at fault. At least the first mistake is the worst. If I overdraw my bank account
by $100 and then I do it by 80 more, I'm just more screwed. That's not the right point.
Again, run the ball, you get the lead at the go into the halftime locker room. Arizona State used their last time out of desperation, like, hey, let's try this. Yeah. Let's see, maybe Dillingham's like, let's see if maybe the return guy was in the end zone when he got tackled, because obviously they're going to run the clock out here. So this is our only chance. Yeah. Like, even Arizona State's like, yeah, we're going to just go to the locker room.
To that extent, listen, they're throwing everything at the kitchen sink. They felt dominated. They had an opportunity to turn the game around and try to double up after the fact to get the ball back in the second half. Something we're not talking about. Why? Because UCF's defense stepped up.
They made a stop early in the third quarter. There, but you're playing catch up, goes back and forth. All right. The other questions, obviously, people in the chat room has brought it up. You obviously brought it up when we were talking as it happened. So credit to you. This is a first guess by you, not a second guess. You first guessed it. 2 third downs. Late in the fourth quarter, they go with a wild night twice in back-to-back possessions. Didn't get it on either one. The first one led to a missed field goal. Which that was the part that caught me off guard, was they went for the field. How long was that field goal when they went for it on the wild night?
47, I believe.
After he had just missed a 57-yarder.
48. It's 57, 48.
And he had just missed a 57-yarder earlier, which that was at the end of the half, which was a long shot. You had a problem with the first wild night, and I would assume had a similar issue with the second one they called in the last possession, obviously. So explain
the second one, right? That's the one where I straight up said ASU is going to stop this.
So give me what was the issue you had? Because that's been a debate within the chat room. Some people hated it. Some people are like, hey, look, I get it. RJ Harvey's getting the ball, so I understand that. So you hated it, though, from the get-go, so explain why you hated it.
Okay, I think everybody here is going to agree outright that RJ Harvey is the best player. And it's not like, well, the best player had the ball in his hands. On the surface, not a terrible thought. I get that. But Eric Lopez, let me ask you this question. Would you rather RJ Harvey versus 11 or RJ Harvey versus 6 or 7? And that's what happens if you come out with your Jakari Brown formation, which has worked twice already, not just with Jakari, Eric Lopez, but in handing the ball to RJ Harvey as well, going full juggernaut over a dude to get a touchdown. Am I right? This is something that Arizona State has not stopped yet, and they needed a timeout to to get less confused and regroup on the first time it came out. They didn't know how to handle this, and yet they didn't go to it. They went back to I'm scared, it's short distance, let's do the Wild Night. And listen, I heard Jordan McDonald, by the way, in Boston College had a good game today too, speaking of Wild Night formations, but I digress. That failed. But by the way, here's the thing. They never got around to stopping Jakari Brown and RJ Harvey on the field. It was just too scary for them. And at the end of the day, I could see a case with the way they came out in the formation and they had the receivers wide and all that Jakari might have beaten somebody on the outside if he opted to carry the ball. Or I don't understand the world where you're beating them by deception and movement in other parts, and then you take the guesswork out. How many times have we seen guys, Dion and other teams since then, Coach Prime, talk about, I didn't throw my mama in the box. Listen, you're coming out with RJ Harvey and Wild Night on a 4th and short. We all know he's running the humpy bumpy. What are we doing here?
Right, he's not going to throw. They're just not going to throw the ball, so there's no risk there.
If that's how they convert, you know what? My defense will stop them the next series, man, because they're damn sure not doing it that way.
And like I said, it was 3rd and 2, and he got stopped, settled for the field goal. All right, I wasn't a big fan of it, but all right, whatever. It happens. Give Arizona State credit, made a play. But then they do it again on 4th and 2, Kyle.
That's
the game basic. They doubled down on the play.
Yep.
That was head scratching. Head scratching me. And it's just
there was a comment earlier in the show about decision making. Sure. And I feel like that this game came down to, at least in part, to a series of bad decisions that just compounded the issue worse and worse. There was the decision to take the ball out of the end zone. There was the decision to throw the ball from the 1 yard line. There was the decision to go to the Wild Night. There was the decision to go to the Wild Night again. There was the decision to not call a timeout and let the clock run down 40
What did you think of that, Kyle?
I see the thought. And granted, I'm not here to say I agree with it, all right? I'm not the guy in the program that's written a book on the game of football, at least not yet, right? I might be pretentious enough to try to. We all know that. But that's a separate conversation, guys. The punchline is this, fellas. I can see what he's doing. You've made this many mistakes. You realize, hey, I don't like the idea of putting this young kid in his first road start without, put him out there and everybody pinning their ears back and attacking. I need a timeout so at least I can give the threat of RJ Harvey with him on the field. And, my defense, if I'm Gus Malzahn, I'm saying my defense has chased Arizona's quarterback all over the backfield all night long. Dalen Dotson is probably going to be in his nightmares. I even have Quadric Bullock with a sack, his first of the year. My defense can make the stop, and when they do, I will have that timeout to threaten with RJ Harvey. Now, would I have done it that way? No, probably not. But I believe there's going to be some element of having that timeout to keep RJ Harvey in the football game as part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised. Were you surprised Arizona State didn't kick the field goal there?
No. For me, I think they because it didn't take them out of harm's way per se. Right. If
I was surprised they still let 5 seconds there for UCF. I mean, UCF didn't even try a trick play or anything. just whatever. But,
I dare you. What are you going to do now? And because RJ Harvey is the main threat, RJ Harvey taking it that distance, good luck. They knew that wasn't going to happen. They were confident that a run play was taken out of it. Now no hook and ladders or anything like that. That's cool. But, at days in, that's that's where it's at now. And I see a lot in the comments about players making dumb decisions. Let's also examine how we got here, right? The main return man transferred weeks back. Let's be clear. The intended return man was meant to be Xavier Townsend with Trent Winnemore as a backup, and then Trent Winnemore in the past couple weeks himself proved himself unworthy because he basically refused to catch or return the football in the Wildcats game, right? So at some point, you're this deep in the roster looking for some damn buddy to do the thing.
No, that's a good point. With in this era, you're not as deep as you think you are. I mean, I was watching the Georgia game earlier today. They were talking about the receivers struggling because they've lost receivers to the NFL draft. They've lost receivers that have transferred out. So now you're depending on a bunch of freshmen and kids that are backups. And that's just, I mean, if Georgia.
The better example might be the defensive front, Eric, but your point holds true.
But if I say if Georgia's having depth issues, what do you think UCF's not? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the name of the game because guys are leaving the portal and guys leaving during the season. I mean, that's a combination of things. You're right. That's a good point. Again, the kid's a freshman. He's going to be better off for that. He's going to be better. He'll learn from that. Again, I think if you run the ball out of there, we're not harping on that play. But instead, you double down, double compound it, whatever the term you want to use.
Or you just kneel the goddamn ball like you're supposed to,
right?
And we're not talking about it.
Let risk run up the middle, whatever. Get out of there.
Or you run the ball and they don't make it out of there, and then we're complaining about a completely different thing.
No, but you're right. Like Kyle said, you have the lead. I'm coughed up.
I mean, clearly we still got the lead.
At that point, what idea would give you that you would get stopped for a safety when you've had success running the ball all year? That's your bread and butter. That's who you are. That's the difference. At least if they stop you on the safety, hey, they stopped you at your own best thing. Throwing the football was not your best thing there.
Well, and let me build on that too. Let me put on my tinfoil hat. Here's something too that this knocks loose those guys.
Oh boy, here we go.
Tim Harris and that if him as the play caller, right? I'm going to put that in air quotes. Officially the play caller, right? He comes out with that decision to throw at the 1. Now you tell me, guys, you've watched enough Gus Malzahn UCF football. What sounds more like Gus Malzahn? Doubling down on the Wild Knight or getting Ja'Cory Brown in a formation in the red zone and making all that work? Gus Malzahn, forcing the Wild Knight is a thing that we've seen before.
So you're saying that Tim.
I think that play on the 1 gave Gus Malzahn an excuse to take the play calling back, and he swung the pendulum back too far.
Or maybe making suggestions
at the very least. But
I agree. I don't think
maybe just doubt in Tim Harris's head. That's fine. But the point is that, and this is where I disagree with you, Bryson, about which thing had the bigger impact, is because down the line, over and above the actual play that scored the points, down the line, when you have coaches questioning your play calling ability and what to do when they get the lemon booty in those heavy situations, it's a tough thing.
Duval Knights, Kyle, considering you covered the Jacks before, I figured that's a fitting little name right there. Talked about how throwing was not good, the half-yard line. However, the throw was a bit behind, had it led the wide receiver more. So what about from the standpoint of actually making the throw?
I mean, this is
he's a redshirt freshman. He's a redshirt freshman. You can't assume he's making that throw in his second start. You can't.
Well, it's not even that. It's not when you drop a pass play, Elo, you're not expecting the middle to get blown up the way that it did too. There's a whole lot of things that were
even more reason to be conservative.
My point exactly. It's because what's the famous football platitude, gentlemen, right? There's only 3 things that can happen on a pass, and 2 of them are bad, right?
Yeah. By the way, I want to play this. Gus Malzahn was asked about this specific play. He was asked about this sequence, the kickoff return and the pass play. So I want to hear what Gus says. I have no idea what he said, but he has addressed it, and I want you guys to kind of react to what he says here. As soon as I play the correct clips here on the fly here, folks. Here we go.
It really does. Hadn't this happen much in my career, and we're having to deal with it. And like I said, they block a punt for a touchdown, and then we have a pick 6. I mean, that's 14 points right there. And we did outplay them as far as statistically, but statistically doesn't put wins, on the board.
I guess you talked about the I guess it was the fumbled kickoff or the kickoff where I guess Christian was trying to get out of the end zone. What did you see on that play, and what can you take from that? And I guess
to be honest with you, we were talking, and I had my back turned, knowing we were going to fair catch it, and then I kind of heard the crowd, and I looked up, and it looked like he was bobbling it, and then we got the ball on the 1 foot line. So that's really all I saw.
And what's the thought process then to throw at that situation instead of maybe try and run?
Well, when you throw a pick six, that's a great question, but that was just part of it. That was part of the play call, but obviously it didn't work.
And what was the thought process to kick the field goal at that late juncture? You only would have been up by 6 at that point. Was that a decision?
Yeah, it was, and I felt good about that. I mean, it's right in the middle. Obviously, it didn't work, but going up, by more than a field goal, I thought it was the right thing to do at the time. And obviously, when it hits upright and doesn't work, I mean, then you second guess everything. But at the time, I felt like that was the right thing to do.
Yes, you talked about Dylan. Obviously this is a growing experience for him going through what he did the second half. Do you feel like that pick six kind of rattled him in the second half?
No, I don't. I mean, he got over that. He really did, and came out, and we had a protection. The sack, the big sack towards the end was tough. I think it was 2nd and 3, and we did max protect on a play, and he took, he got a sack. But I thought Dylan did some good things. I mean, he battled. There was 2 or 3 third downs that, man, they were all over him. He just extended the play and moved the chains for us. So I thought he did some really good stuff. And in fairness to him, I mean, he hadn't played a lot of football, and that's a team that that is towards the top of our league. But I thought Dylan did some really good things.
All right, that was Gus Malzahn in the post game. And gentlemen, I don't know if you picked up on what I picked up on, but by the way, thanks Matt Burchell, Orlando Center friend, Brandon Hellwig, UCF Sports, our friend Trace Trunco, all of them there asking those questions. Very good. The questions we needed to hear. Did you pick up on how he responded to the question about on Trace's question about throwing the ball at the 1 yard line? And he's like, that's a great question. He did not, you could tell he was not happy about that play call, guys. Right? Am I wrong? Tell me if I'm wrong here.
That is some fine between the line reading you are making here. But listen, with that same, I'm glad you led there too, because there's a comment here from Eric Edwards, man. Hey, by the way, love your contribution, brother. Keep doing it. But is it the pass play last week from the 1 worked fine last week? Okay, here's the thing. Thank you, Eric. The difference between that moment and what's going on with Arizona State is you're already 2 blunders deep. You're clawing out of a situation where, listen, you need to escape this half. You need to reset. You need your minds right, because it's because at that point for me, I'm not saying that UCF felt like they were on their heels. That might be a bit much. Listen, you still have the lead. You still have a big lead. Or no, you don't have a big lead at that point. Sorry. You still have the lead. It should have been a 2-score lead, but whatever. Let's concentrate on keeping them the hell off the board in Q3 and then go up 2 scores the following series. That's kind of my thought process to it. Listen, when the moment I saw Dylan drop back, I hated it. I did not obviously expect a pick six, but that's where we ended up. I just, again, the opportunity cost there just did not. No, it was not worth it to me, especially when you had already had 2 colossal blunders by the special teams. Get out of there. Get out of there.
And again, low percentage chance you're even going to be able to accomplish anything there. You're not going to get God.
Last week it ended in a Hail Mary, and I understand all of that, which again kind of boggles my mind on why you take the 57-yard shot instead of trying for another one.
Well, in the broadcast, they were showing that. They thought they were going to go for the Hail Mary as well.
Up for just that situation, baby.
Correct.
You can tell.
Yeah. Well, you heard Gus explain why he thought he went for the field goal there. That was interesting. Did you have a problem with him going for the field goal there that would have put him up 6, which was after the first wild night?
Yeah.
Did you have an issue with him going for the field goal there? That was the Brandon question there. Because I thought when he did the wild night, I didn't think much about it because I thought they were going to go for it.
Yeah, I disliked that less. That's really one of those where he has a lot of faith in Grant Reddick. And listen, considering the young man hit the upright, it ain't like he don't got the leg. I understand. We've seen him trust Colton Boomer as a freshman and get paid dividends doing it. In that year, right? It bothers me less, is what I'll say. Did that one have me pulling my hair like some of these others? Not really, but yeah.
Kicker's job's real simple. One job: make your kicks. That's it. I know it sounds cold, but that's reality. If you make that kick, you're up 6. Maybe you only need a field goal at the end. Maybe the defense plays a little more preventive, or you never know what happens. But you got to make your kicks. That's this day and age, that yardage, that field goal is a makeable kick.
Yeah, especially with Grant Reddick's leg. And there's a comment too. I got to give Eric Edwards the respect. He's
getting attacked by people, man. He
calls my name here, and in particular, I want to make sure that he knows where I stand. All right, so I agree with you, Kyle. I'm not saying he made the right decision with a pass, but acting like that's the decision that should get Gus fired is horse crap. No, mostly because I don't think that was Gus's call in particular.
No, it was not. You just heard him. He was not happy with that. He's like, because they asked him, why did you throw the ball? He's like, it's a great, with a red shirt with Dylan there. That's a very good question. That tone and answer basically said, that was not me. That was not up to me. And I'm telling you, I guarantee you, he probably had a few, he talked to Tim Harris about that. Probably going to the line.
I think that the final, that's the domino I'm talking about. That's how I think they ended up doubling, tripling down on the Wild Night. Is because that play happened. Tim Harris put himself in a position to get questioned. Boom.
Could be. Could be. I mean, because he's an inexperienced play caller. He's only called 2 games at the collegiate level.
There's still plenty, by the way, of play calls in this game that he had that I thoroughly enjoyed. Let me be clear.
Sure.
But
that's, I think Gus's point there is that's the most basic thing. You've got a redshirt freshman there. Just hand the ball off. Get out of there. Just get out of there. Arizona State had no timeouts. Dillingham was waving the flag. My God. I'm never going to get into that. You guys be nice to Eric Edwards. Man, they're people.
Hey, listen.
The problem is that we are in the
clear. Like, just no night on night crime, please. Go ahead, Bryson. Sorry.
There has been some increasingly bad decision making throughout this season, I think. The fact that things have just not been working. Very little has worked, honestly. KJ Jefferson didn't work. Then we went to Jakari. That didn't work. We have there's so many things about games and some players in this instance is just not working. And we're trying to figure out and people are just trying to figure out what will work. And unfortunately, people disagree on those when it comes to that sort of thing.
It's tough. It's easy to question from our houses and all this stuff, and that's what we do. We're all doing it. Listen. I want to say this. This staff it's not for lack of caring or effort. I think they're just as frustrated as we are. I don't think they're like, whatever.
Well, what was it in the comment? Somebody said Gus looks sick. It's like, I think he's sick of losing these damn football games, man.
Oh, I think this year is probably the most frustrating of his career because he obviously felt very high about this team.
Yes.
Put all his chips on this team, and it has not gone the way he thought it would. A lot of things have not gone the way it was supposed to go. And again, I've given him credit. He's tried a lot of different things. A lot of coaches, the guy in Tallahassee being one of them, just sits there and takes his ass kicking every week and doesn't do anything to change anything. Gus has tried. Well, that's a whole other saga.
That's really a little bit better than it should. Apparently, he saved his job allegedly. More on that later.
Yeah, that's your guy there, That's your guy, Kyle. Billy Napier.
Yeah, listen. I love him as Raging Cajun. As a Gator, well, that's another question.
Look, he has played 4 different quarterbacks. He has fired himself as a play caller. Fired a defensive coordinator. He's tried a lot of different things. I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying there's not flaws there, but the guy's tried, and it's just one of those years that it just wasn't meant to be. Why can't we just accept that? Why can't we accept that?
Here's where it is, man. And this all starts. And I know fans are going to be like, oh, this is loser talk. Look, these are facts of the case, and you can take with them as you will, fans. I am not asking you to agree. I'm not asking you to love it. But these are the facts of life. All of this started with Tommy Castellanos getting purchased by BC. Period. The whole reason that Gus Malzahn's on record. We have him on record somewhere in the Black and Gold Banner at YouTube channel. He's on record with broadcasters in their meetings talking about what it was that drove him to get KJ Jefferson. Okay? It was a guy who was the best all-time passer, allegedly, in Arkansas history, or quarterback, I should say, in Arkansas history in some way, shape, form, or fashion, right? And he's an experienced guy with one more year to play. He's not a 17-year-old. He's not a 19-year-old. He's not a dude that has trouble throwing the football, allegedly. Bring him in, because I need to find a way to replace my future that was supposed to come in after John Rice Plumlee left. And that threw everything off. Then, when KJ was a miss, because, as you said, Eric Lopez, he was football punch drunk, apparently, and it all just kind of stumbled from there, and they came upon Dylan Risk. Well, gosh, why didn't they start him the whole time? Because he's a redshirt freshman. You don't start kids like that when you're going to be facing Deion Sanders. It's not your first choice on paper.
The room for margin for error in a major conference is very small. And if things just don't go your way, it could be a huge difference. And that's what happened here. You didn't hit the quarterback. You know, I wrote about it. So I'm on record. I supported the KJ Jefferson move. It did not work. Yeah. And unfortunately, and by the way, it's, in fairness, a lot of people thought it would work. I thought it would work. I mean, the Big 12 coaches thought it would work. They wrote them no. If you don't have hit on the quarterback, you're playing from behind the whole time.
So wait, I'm seeing this comment. Did you guys actually bring up Loudermilk tweeting?
Yeah. Punters should not have any comments to me. I'm sorry. I don't think former players commenting negativity about your program that gave you a ride is a positive at all. It drives me nuts.
Okay. I don't know that I agree with the same fervor, Elo. That's what I'll say.
Go support why would you, again, what are you accomplishing there?
You're getting in somebody's head that, hey, your approach is the problem. Now, do you do it on Twitter? That's a great point. I agree. You don't necessarily go out publicly. You find Terry Mohajir. Hell, DM Terry Mohajir. I don't care. You know.
That's different. That's different. And listen, there are certain players, if you're an elite, because and I hated this because, Shaquem Griffin made an honest comment in a radio interview locally that got blown out of proportion. Because that's what we do. This is why people don't like the media, Kyle, because we grab a clip and we blow it up and make it a bigger deal than it was. He made some comment about, the things were just not right there. Well, of course not. We're not having a very successful season.
Yeah.
The culture. And everybody ran with that.
I don't even think anything as damning as the culture wasn't there or anything like that.
Correct.
But and listen, Shaq said the same thing to us first in our interview with him on the Black and Gold YouTube channel. And then it ends up, I won't say the person's name because that would have anyways, but it ended up on this person's show and they tweeted, it was National Enquirer-ish, man. It was terrible.
Right. They made it out like, he was bashing the staff, whatever. And it wasn't the case. And here's my problem. And this is the other problem.
I got to do this, man. I'm sorry. I'm the emotional one this time, Elo. My bad. If you idiots out there, any of you, media otherwise, think Shaquem Griffin will ever crap on this program, you're an idiot. That's not what he's doing. That's not ever what he's doing.
And he would speak from experience. He was on a team that had some that the culture wasn't right. They were not good. He's seen it when it's good. That's all. Usually, when a team is not winning a lot of games, things are not perfect. They're not great fit. It doesn't mean the program's in a disarray or any of that, which people try to make it out to Shaquem Griffin. My issue with the former players, and even players that left the program, okay, and then like to talk, oh, you should now. You know why? They shut up.
Well, you would agree that those are separate categories.
Correct,
right?
correct. But here's my problem here's the problem. You know who sees those comments from your former alums? Thank you. Yeah. Thanks a lot. You're not helping. Not helping.
If you and listen, in particular to Loudermilk, man, listen, I love that dude. I have had some great conversations.
Good guy, but stop. This is the problem with these former guys. They watch the game live and they can't help themselves, so they go on social media and voice their emotions. He's not the only one. Don't go on social media. You're not helping. It's not a helpful situation. You're not helping. If you got an issue, like you said, that's one thing.
And he has a good criticism. In his defense, it's a good criticism. He makes a great point.
We don't need the negativity.
But you don't like the delivery. I get that. That's a very listen. You've had worse takes than that, bro.
I just think that's the last thing you need, because if you get everybody now, it's almost like you're piling on. It's like you're piling on.
Yeah, it does give that vibe, doesn't it?
And I don't think that's good for the program. That doesn't help at all. And there's too many of that. That's too much of that stuff going on.
Let's get the commenters back in here, man.
Get it. You got me all fired up now.
My bad. Can we fix anything for next season? Do we get more players? Okay, so theoretically, and Eric, I'm stealing one from your thing here, buddy. The whole purpose of the rest of the season, since you don't care about bowl games, is developing Dylan Risk, is it not?
Yes, I said that at the open.
It starts
with all that being said, I'm like everybody else. I'm in a good place because I have liked what I've seen from Dylan Risk so far. And if he continues to play like this the rest of the year, I'm good. Whether they go to a bowl or not, I don't care. I'm excited because at least it looks like we have a quarterback in 2025 to build around and to at least can win some games. Absolutely.
Yeah, 1,000,000,000%. And listen, I know that there's other spots that may be a question, but listen, a D tackle, if we can keep Johnny Walker in the building, that's still strong. That's still all. There's still enough to work around here. Receiver might be a little thin, but hey, don't you like what you've seen from Jacoby Jones so far?
Absolutely. Like he has been.
Oh, wait, hold on. Let me address Brodsky. Hey, how do those Alabama alums look now that criticize Kalen DeBoer, who just kicked Brian Kelly's ass in LSU? Not too smart, are they? That's my point.
Technically speaking, Alabama lost to a ranked team with that conversation, too. I'm just throwing that out there.
The Vanderbilt team's going bowl eligible. And they're going to go to the playoff, one of 600 teams from the SEC that's going to this playoff that people like you, Kyle, wanted to expand. Congratulations, Kyle. We get an SEC invitation. I know, I'm just.
Bro, I wanted 8 teams. Don't come at me.
Me too. You and me wanted 8.
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
8. 8's a good number.
Anyways, go ahead. I'm sorry. What else you got, guys?
This is so. Law Bellevue said, "I think we lose a lot of recruits. That's the best with Gus, and that's in jeopardy. This is bad."
See, this is there we go again. Now let me just say this, because this is the problem. We get too harped up on the recruits and recruiting rankings. Let me ask you this question, gentlemen: would you rather be UCF right now with Gus, or Florida with Billy Napier?
Well, what makes that question tough is the league, doesn't it? Because the Big 12 is wide bleeding open. And, of course, the conversation that nobody's willing to have, that we keep having to tell people, even if this, not to sound like the Johnny Darkins argument, I'll go right now, like, nonetheless, firing Gus right now is dumb, because to put him out to pasture, to pay him off, you're losing all that money to keep players in the building or attract.
Well, and I do think that's part of the reason why Napier is being kept. I think that's because Napier would be owed $26 million, and I think part of the thinking is rather than spend $26 million to get rid of Billy Napier, why don't you spend that money on your roster? And I think more schools are going to start thinking about that.
Yeah.
Now, I also think, but I also think they announced that real quick because obviously the little scandal they got going on with their men's basketball program. But that's a whole other story. I'll tell you, buddy.
You're probably never gonna have in this basketball program with Johnny Dawkins.
Amen.
Period.
Yeah. By the way, you notice how all the alums basketball compliment Johnny. They congratulate him on 150. They were positive. Imagine that. Would you rather be Gus Malzahn at UCF right now or Mike Norvell in Florida State?
Gus Malzahn all day.
Yeah.
Gus Malzahn all day. Because the expectation was never national championship or bust. with Gus here. I really think some Knowlers out there thought that they were going to be in the running for national championship contention. And obviously it's not happening.
Well, no, what he has done here, what he has done this year, I mean, I'm going to call it the George O'Leary Award, which is go from having a really great year to a historically awful year. Like, they are probably the worst power conference team in 2024, if you've watched them play. It's a miracle they have a win against Cal. I mean, you can name it. I'm open to conversations. Name me a worse team in the power conference than Florida State this year. Normally
I would have made a joke with Vanderbilt, but I can't do that.
No, that's my point. Vanderbilt's going to a bowl. Like, he went from an undefeated season, 13-0, to about he's going to go 2-10, 1-11. Like, it reminds me of O'Leary of 14 and 15 when O'Leary went from winning the American to going winless. It's
Purdue?
Pretty remarkable.
By the way, as a quick aside, gentlemen, I got to tell you, we were worried about whether people would stay up with us tonight for night shift, and the comments are going nuts.
I was never worried.
By the way,
I was never worried.
Colorado is on the list pre-prime, right? But they have one win.
Yeah.
And what was it? I forget who it was now. It was somebody who was like awful, So I think Colorado
might be playing for a Big 12 championship game if he wins out.
Well, hey, listen, we're not trying to.
He might be tied for first here as we're doing this show. Yes. Utah is beating BYU 21-10 at the half.
What?
Yes, I'm watching.
Holy war.
So if BYU loses, there's a good chance that the Big 12 champion will not get a bye in the top four. Like, Boise might jump the Big 12 champion.
Yeah, that would be
embarrassing. That's embarrassing.
I'm here for it, but that would be nutty. I'm not here. Well, let's not go embarrassing far. Like, let's look at Boise State's schedule where they nearly. You want to know embarrassing? Nearly losing to them and then trying to tell me how great Dylan Gabriel is, right? Oregon, but but that all being said, yeah, man, that's crazy, Dukes. That's going on too. And then what? Iowa State's getting exposed again. We
called that. We did call that.
We did, absolutely.
Yeah, they lost today. They lost to Kansas. So, yeah, that's they're dipping on the wrong side. Arizona State could get to the Big 12 title game. With this win, they play Kansas State. They still play BYU. And if they get Scatterbo back, they could.
Well, according to you, then, Tim Harris, or according to us, I should say, Tim Harris should get a Christmas card from the desert. It'd be great. Well, there is one thing I wanted to go back to, though, guys. Yeah. And Eric, I understand you don't put weight on recruits as much as others do. I'm with you to the extent of 5-star this and 3-star that.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But I do think if UCF misses bowl eligibility, that is kind of a blow against recruiting. I'd be interested to see, because remember, Gus Malzahn has broken recruiting records based on ranking each year he's been in the building.
But it's got to materialize, and maybe that's something that's part of the evaluation here.
Well, let me land the plane with this too. If the statement is his strength is recruitment, and now you aren't setting another recruiting record, and you're downsliding as well, even your strength isn't pumping the iron. The thing is, his contract does go up in 2027, I believe. So. Yep. There's only so much more time he's got anyway, but
sure. Yeah. We'll see. I think there's a lot of evaluations they're going to be going on between now.
Yeah. I think that's what I think also is getting a lot of people, because let's put it this way. People already call for the firing of coaches whenever they, make a bad decision on the field or whatever. But in my opinion, I think once you see people like, recruits start flipping, then you start seeing people like, whoa, especially when the strength of the coach is in the recruiting aspect. Because let's put it this way, this season I don't think has reflected really well on UCF, because you have, for example, you didn't go with Dylan Risk after KJ Jefferson didn't work out. Or you bring in people like Penny Boone and Miles Montgomery to diversify the running back room, but you're just going back to RJ Harvey over and over and over again. Now he's the hot hand, obviously, but you get brought, the idea you go there and you want to have playing time and all that type of stuff, and you're seeing how it's not really being honored, I guess, in that sense. You're gonna go to someplace else. The whole reason we even have parity right now, like, look, you've seen the parity right now in college football with all of these different teams, just chaos, honestly, in college football this season. It's because of things like that, where people are able to use some money to lure over players that they wouldn't otherwise get.
Right. Well, so there's a couple things there, Bryson, I feel like I have to address. You mentioned the thing about Dylan Risk not being promoted. Well, no, he was promoted eventually. Like, I can't stress this enough. Redshirt freshman, nobody was talking about Dylan Risk being a starting caliber guy, especially me who was watching him in camp. He was not comfortable yet in the system. Dylan Risk got there from studying his entire butt off. We talked to Caden Kittler, the center, his roommate, and he explained to us how much of a maniac he had been studying this season throughout all that time. I don't know if you guys picked it up. I think I brought it up on Night Shift last week, and if I didn't, I need to now, so we're clear on Dylan Risk and what he is as a player and as a student, man. First of all, this guy's sharp. The way he looks to me, I could just as easily see him being an engineering student. That's a separate question, okay? When asked about how he got comfortable and things like that happen, he mentioned having conversations with Herb Hand, so he knows where exactly to slide in which position with whatever protection, what his placement should be. Guys, that's not stuff we've heard about in press conferences. And
well, you know what, though, Kyle? You know what's interesting? And we kind of forget this. Who's the quarterback who's been here the longest that would know the playbook?
I mean,
Dylan.
I guess you're getting at risk, technically speaking, for
because he redshirted the year before, and this is his second year with the program. KJ got here as a transfer, so did Jakari, and EJ reclassified. Technically should be a senior in high school right now. So Dylan knows the playbook better than everybody, which I think gets lost in this sometimes. If people are asking about the quarterback thing, credit to Dylan for staying with it. He mentioned, I think he told you, Kyle, that Bryce, that Gus told him to stay ready because you never know. And credit to Gus, he gave him an opportunity and he's taken advantage of that. Where in a lot of quarterbacks in Dylan's situation would have bolted in the spring or whatever. So I think it's a good story there. And maybe that's why I'm kind of rooting for it, because I think that's the way it should be done.
Well, he's easy to root for too. I mean,
he came here, he wanted to be here all this time. But I think the fact that he sat out a year, he knows the system. He's probably knows the system better than the rest of the quarterbacks at this point, because again, the others just got here. And I think that does play a factor. Not that excuses the poor play earlier, but that, Dylan got his opportunity, taking advantage. And a lot of times, I think quarterbacks is hard to figure out at practice because some guys don't practice well, so you evaluate them because of that, but they're playing better on the field. Rob Calabrese was a great example. The guy was the greatest quarterback here at UCF in practice in the spring game, and then when the lights came on, he didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point. Listen, I've seen it too. I'll go to the NFL in my coverage with the Duval Dive. Brian Thomas Jr. was a terrible draft pick for the first 2 days of camp. And then when they stopped doing red zone drills and they opened up the field and were bombing the ball down the field and he's scoring on Tampa Bay starters in the joint practice, suddenly he's a great player. It's the same sort of thing. With Dylan, I really think it's a matter of him gaining comfort as the season went on and really getting his stride.
Yeah, I agree. And hey, look, he's playing now. And I agree with you, Kyle. You've said this. I don't think if you played Dylan earlier in the year, I don't think
he wasn't ready.
He wasn't ready at that point.
We've seen what quarterbacks aren't ready. And ironically enough, it was a guy I was talking about earlier in Thomas Castellano.
Right. So we'll see what happens. Again, everybody's frustrated. It's just one of those years.
Yeah.
But it happens. It happens to every team. I hate to break it to you. Not every team has a clean slate season. It just didn't work out for a lot of reasons. And I get the frustration. I get the frustration for everybody.
Yeah,
stopping the run better than last year. That part worked. I'll give you that.
Well, look, this was like this. I think I remember saying this before the season that this was UCF's last year to like win the Big 12 now, and before having to, a lot of really good players leaving the program, like RJ Harvey, like, and all of that type of stuff.
Well, listen, it's why the staff, it's why Gus went for it, right? That's why they went for KJ Jefferson. They were going all in. I agree with you, Bryson. And there's no problems with that. It just didn't work out. And I feel like people don't want to accept that. They just want to blame. And I understand that. I'm not saying there isn't room.
To your point, Elo, they're investors now. So it's not just,
Well, that's another issue in college. Right. That's another issue. And I think what we're seeing here, and not just at UCF, but a lot of places, you're right, they're investors. And now they're like, well, now they don't know, you're seeing the grief now. These athletes are going to get treated like pro athletes because how dare you not play? I spent this much money on you. Yeah, that's a great point, Kyle. You're absolutely right.
And listen, I throw more love to Eric Edwards here. He says, I like sitting with my friends that root for the coach. Listen, you're one of the real ones, man. No one's knocking your approach, and you probably enjoy watching the games more because you do that. That's cool. But not everybody thinks that way, man. Listen, people ask me all the time, Elo, you're the student of the game. You do all this and that. How come you don't play fantasy football? It's because if I'm doing that and I got money on it, I stop enjoying it and I get pissed off. It's not, I got time for that. I got kids. I'm trying to keep a happy house,
I mean, that's honestly a different conversation I'd like to have over a beverage of some kind, Kyle.
Honestly, adult beverages, not for you, for me, but details.
Yeah. But no, yeah, I completely understand, like, with all the money being thrown around in college football now, but the problem is that the head coaches are the ones making the decision. And so college football will actually be pretty unique, I think, in the way that the people spending the money are actually not the ones that make the decisions, or at least have direct control. Well, no, I'm sorry. This is college athletics we're talking about with shareholders. Of course,
Bryson.
I guess my point being is that, my point being is that a board of directors has more control of firing a CEO or president than shareholders have control over firing a head coach or that type of thing. Would you say that's a valid comparison there?
I will add these two words, Bryson Turner, for now. The evolution of NIL and where we're at with college is still changing. You know that probably better than I do to some detail because you read more up on some of this stuff. But these days, where we're talking about, what is it? Managing partners or corporate partnerships for the conferences, right? This kind of stuff where you're getting equity partners and entrepreneurship involved in it. You're changing that landscape where your statement may become less true by the passing season. What do you got, Elo?
No, I mean, I think you guys make some interesting points, and it's a different sport. It's a different sport every day. And look, Gus, listen, nobody's saying, Gus, they're going to have to evaluate everything. You always evaluate every year. Things didn't go right. There were some decisions made that didn't go, etc. That's fine. I don't think anybody's defending that or questioning that. I do think, though, I wonder how many people, like, what coaches do you think can fix all this? Because who's the great college coaches out there?
Brent Key.
I don't think
Brent Key
going anywhere. Yeah, exactly. But you're looking for who that name is. Like, people are going to drop names that you know, and the truth is that chances are that if they're a name you know, unless they've fallen out of grace or have some sort of, how you say, moral dirt associated with them, probably not going to go that direction. Or it's going to be somebody else who's failed another place. Like, I don't want to name names as an example of that category. I'll leave it at that. But, like, do you want to see them bring in, a Bobby Petrino or somebody like that?
So people are bringing up SMU. Do you realize SMU has the top 3 NIL money in the ACC?
Mm-hmm.
I did not. That is asinine. Also, SMU kind of overrated and winning the ACC's.
But I'm not even this. But that's not even the point. My point I'm making there is SMU's got way more resources.
Your point is well made. I'm just adding other things to that. But your point is probably the biggest one, sir.
Brett Lashley's got a lot of financial to work with there. So a lot of the success to some extent will be on what financial backing you have and what you do with it correctly.
Your boy Matt Browski's trying to give me a heart attack making a Scott Frauds joke in the comments, man. What are we doing here?
He's hanging out with Sean McVay, though, man. Maybe the Sean McVay dust gets him back going again, you know?
Yeah, again, if you're within proximity.
Sean McVay, yeah.
I mean, Nick Saban's retirement has opened the door for the new coaching rehabilitation position.
Sean McVay. We'll see. They'll evaluate all of that in the offseason stuff, and we'll see what happens, man. It's a tough time. I get the frustration, though. I get the frustration. Everybody's frustrated. I just don't think everybody thinks it's a simple fix that you get rid of this person, get rid of that person. I think it's more than that. But
I'll say this. Here's my kind of my pin to put in why people are more frustrated with this game. It's because it wasn't fun football to watch sometimes, man.
Fair.
It's
fair.
Yeah.
To watch somebody give a half-hearted effort to make a block to allow a block punt to get returned for a touchdown. It's not good to watch, somebody just not kneel, right? It's not good to watch a kid we're cheering for that UCF is clinging to somebody to find hope, and then he makes a big mistake because he's forced into to watch the Wild Knight get stopped again and again. It's not fun football to watch. It's one thing if Risk puts the pass in the end zone for a potential victory, and the defender for the Sun Devil makes an excellent play to stop it. Great game. Let's move on. But there were elements of this game that were not fun to watch, Eric Lopez, as somebody who loves football.
No, I mean, you saying that that's
yeah. If we would just end up getting into the same cycle like people like when we name names, and then I see one commenter Matt J talking about how, like, say we hire an up and coming coordinator, that's a big risk, and then we complain about him, and then he fails, and then you get another person, and then just and over and over and over again, and you know what that starts to sound like, by the way, SEC schools.
Well, yeah, a little bit.
It keeps, and so, I mean, the thing with me and why with Gus is at least, that I noticed with Gus is that he at least cares, and I think that is something that I'm sure a good amount of coaches would laugh their way to the bank, especially with the money that Gus is making, considering of the Auburn buyout that he had. Gus probably has as much a right as any college coach to be laughing his way to the bank right now with the
I think he's absolutely frustrated, miserable right now.
Am I saying that we should be criticized? We should not be criticizing him. No, we have every right to be criticizing him for the decisions he's made. But for people that are calling for his head to be fired, I think that does a disservice to the fact that we are not that there's a difference between a coach trying to make excuses and a coach saying that is in the exact same position that we are, that is mad that this is happening and is trying to find a way to do it. The difference is he actually has control on fixing this thing while we do not, but yet we're the ones that think that we can fix the program. Us, the ones that aren't in the room.
The investors have the money to do that. Bryson, here's your soundbite, right? You don't want a coach that makes excuses. You want a coach that makes a difference. And that's what the Gus has tried to do. Lopez is right on with his point of how much change he's tried to bring. And we talk about firing coaches. That's only where the big parts begin, right? I mean, I say firing coaches. Let me say firing the defensive coordinator, relinquishing play calling duties. He's moved things around on the roster. Oh, yeah, the quarterback. Not just that. Dotson went from inside to the outside. Jacoby Jones is getting on the field. Like, everybody, he's pushing chips into the table and just finding what'll stick. Now, the argument being, well, shouldn't you done that sooner? I'll put it this way. You have a better conversation making that argument for Chauncey Magwood and Jacoby Jones than you do anywhere else, because all we heard about in camp was how Jacoby Jones won camp with how good he showed out, but then we didn't see him till just now after Xavier left and there were some injuries. It is what it is, but I don't know, man. And let me go back to another thing you mentioned. You mentioned the running back situation and a recruit being pushed away or turned away or being put off or by the presence of an RJ Harvey. Here's the thing. Running backs have a very high rate of injury.
Yeah, but Kyle, I'll defend Bryson on this. I think it's a fair question when you evaluate the roster, especially in this era where income is a factor. Okay? You have RJ Harvey, who everybody, again, you're telling me he's one of the best backs in the history of the program. Had a great year last year.
You don't think he's one of the best backs?
No, I am. That's my point. So why do we need to get 2 running backs out of the portal? What? Because you're not, like, to Bryson's point, it's not like what you get. And that was the thing, right? We were there at media day. The lip service was, hey, this is gonna be like Arkansas with Darren McFadden and Felix Jones, and there's plenty of carries to go around. But there really isn't.
Or there are that many carries to go around. RJ's just taking all those too.
Because he's that good. Because if you don't give him the ball, then people are like, why aren't you giving him the ball? So I understand your point about injuries, but did you really need both backs, Kyle?
Yeah.
Did you maybe? I don't think you did. I think you needed.
Listen,
what about the young backs behind them? What happened to that?
Well, and then listen, that's the great frosty adult beverage conversation that goes way outside this pod. But like, yeah, I for me, especially if you're running Gus's offense, let me reiterate that's a big part of it, right? If you're running Gus's style of offense where you're going to have dudes that do that, Johnny Richardson, this is going to be cruel. I don't count him in the conversation. He is a gadget guy at this point. I think he's in the room for leadership purposes, not for on-field production, in my opinion. Now, he's a good change of pace until he fumbles the ball in back-to-back offensive plays, but that was just an unfortunate situation. We shouldn't judge Johnny of that one thing. I get it. But he's in the room for leadership purposes, right? What about Miles Montgomery? Listen, coach is getting him in there. He reminds me to an extent of Otis Anderson and Greg McCray kind of split in that time. Granted, they had a better balance between the two of them, but you and I both know if RJ Harvey got hurt today, they wouldn't go with Penny Boone. They would go with Miles Montgomery.
Okay.
And Penny Boone just didn't pan. It is what it is. You also,
but I think Bryson's point, and I tend to agree with this, rather than stockpile at running back, maybe you go in a different area of need in the position. That's part. And again, this is the evaluation that not just here at UCF, but a lot of schools are going to have to make. Because I think what happens is the portal is like the NFL free agency. Ooh, that's kind of fun. Yeah, let's go get that guy. Oh, let's get this guy. And then they're like, oh, wow, we're up against the cap. And then we're flawed here and flawed there. I don't know, man. Could we have used another receiver? Could we have used another defensive? I don't know. Who knows? It's all hindsight, right? It didn't work, so that's why we're talking about it.
We can see those contracts that the NFL have, where we don't really see the contracts that the players are getting.
But I think if you're
how do we know this wasn't the best offer that Penny Boone could get? That's a fact too.
No, that's fair. I just think from a roster evaluation, I think there's got to be a balancing act between getting guys at the portal, but also having your own guys. You can't. And I know they're going to bring up Kenny Dillingham. They brought it up on the broadcast. He brought up 60 players on his roster. You know why he did that? Because he had a garbage roster. Garbage roster. That's why you did it. I don't think that was the case here. So I think the thing that was a red flag to me at the time was when we went aggressive in the portal in the spring. Mm-hmm. I thought that was really interesting, and maybe he just didn't like some of the young players. Who knows? But I think one of the evaluations that's going to happen here at the end of the season, and I don't think this is just a football thing. This is an all sports thing at UCF, because whether people want to admit it or not, you are in a different league now, in a different weight class. And people are like, wow, what happened to volleyball and soccer? You know what happened? They're playing in a tougher leagues now. And now all of a sudden,
McKenna Melville, but that's a whole other question.
You lose a franchise player like McKenna Melville, you're going to have to rebuild. So the margin for error is very small. And so, whereas I think if this team was in the American, they would contend for the American title with Tulane and the Armies of the world. They would. But because you're in the Big 12, it's more exposed. Does that make sense?
1,000,000,000% accurate.
Okay. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot more attention to it. There's a lot more of that going on for sure. Yeah. And listen, I've made the point of, you actually did it first with the Colorado game, where we started pointing out the receiver position looking a little shallow,
Well, especially when you saw what Colorado had on the other side and the playmakers they had was like, whoa.
Who you have as the coach can dictate what players will pick what. And listen, no disrespect to Gus, but a dude of his age is going to be less inclined to recruit flashy guys. Receivers are flashy guys. No one should be shocked by me saying that as a general rule. Me as an offensive lineman, not particularly flashy. Just saying. My fashion statement's a backwards cap. It ain't bling. I'm just
No, yeah, let's put it this, let's not forget that some of the biggest additions that UCF probably has made over the past couple of years has been that defensive line and the middle part of that with Lee Hunter and John Walker. So,
well, and to leave out the offensive line and how they've competed quickly going from the American to the Power Conference world is
the same offensive line that also got a lot of false start penalties because Gus talked about the penalties also making him sick too.
Okay, Bryson, this is really this because we can have this conversation.
Look, let's just say you take the good with the bad. Okay, I'm just saying it's not perfect.
And by the way, I'll even to your point. 6 penalties or however many it was.
It was 9. It was 9, by the way.
Thank you. 2 of them were erased by your young quarterback because they were back-to-back false starts that he turned into a touchdown. Right? So, you got to take the good with the bad, right, Bryson?
At the end of the day, it's a frustrating year because it's a disappointing year. Remember, Gus said last year was a disappointment, right? He said it himself, his own words. I remember Bryson was trying to hey, man, it wasn't that bad, was it? And Gus no, it was the funniest exchange. Like Bryson was trying to defend last season. Actually, but coach, I
feel like that's my fault. I picked them to win 6. They nailed it.
So I guarantee you, Gus, and everybody's disappointed. Everybody's disappointed, and everybody has a right to be disappointed.
It compounds on last year's disappointment too. That's what makes it worse. I think.
Sure. I mean, it's odd because, and we'll have to evaluate this after the season, because I think what makes it disappointing is they felt they had a better roster this year than last year. Whether that's, was that true? Was that not true?
What part of the ball are we talking about?
So what?
What
part of the ball? Sure, part of the ball. By the way, Addison Williams blitzed a lot. Remember that?
I mean, Quadric Bullard, that blitz call where Quadric got the call, Lee Hunter chasing down Sam Levitt, that was a crazy play. Mac McWilliams, I mean, he managed to basically take on both wide receivers in a wide receiver screen. That was a pretty doggone cool looking play. I'm not going to lie. The defense has clearly been better since Addison Williams took over. Is it perfect? No, but to be fair, they also didn't have Braden Marshall and another player that I'm blanking on the name of at the minute.
They also weren't playing top 15 ranked teams at the time either, for clarity.
The other thing is, too, that's a bugaboo, and Gus said this a year ago about Big 12 play. You got to win close games.
Yes.
Close game today, you lost. Close game at Iowa State, lost. Close game against Cincinnati, where to me that was the one that you had to.
Really the worst loss of the season. I don't care what anybody else does.
Well, from a full team perspective, sure. From a full team perspective, sure. But I feel like that this loss is just worse from a what could have been standpoint. Because
absolutely, yeah.
And that's where I think, and the problem is that I think a lot of people focus on the what could have been, because that's what people that spend money also focus on, the what could have been, the opportunity cost of it all. I could have gotten this. Why did I spend
what could have been? You know what? I respond to that. What could have been if Aubrey Dawkins tipping goes in and we're in the Sweet 16, and what could have been? Now that's sports.
See, I was sure you were going to bring up Baylor. My bad.
No, but that's sports, man. That's the craziness of sports is what could have been, what could have this, what could have been that. Just a frustrating year. But the good news, boys, basketball's here. Hey, here's an idea. Go support the basketball team.
Here's a good little recommendation I'll give for you. And what's awesome is you guys will know who I'm talking about. Do you remember a singer by the name of Sting?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so tonight is tonight
like,
is
you know who Sting is. Like,
Hey, if we didn't know who Sting was, Eric, he might have to call the police.
so tonight is the season 2 premiere of a Netflix show I really loved, and Sting had a song on the soundtrack in season 1 called "What Could Have Been," and it's a really good song. It's very therapeutic, and I feel like it would really help people right now. That's why I'm bringing this up right now.
I love how
like
Bryson's bringing this up. Like, we've never heard of Sting's music song. Of course,
I mean, he's trying.
Well, I was banking more on the fact that you would be impressed. I know who he is.
He's trying to kill with this joke. It's almost if he's the only murderer in the building.
Oh,
all right.
Oh
We've gone nearly 2 hours of ranting and frustrating and venting. Hopefully,
We
everybody's
didn't know
feeling
we were
better.
gonna have anybody.
well, I think that, the thing, Eric, I respect the fact that you gave up on this season as quickly as it did, because now
Yes, I
you
do.
look like the genius
Thank
at this
you. Well,
point.
this is what happens. I follow this program for 26 years. I know when to bail.
Buddy, I can't give up on it like that. I'm trying to cover it every week on the Black and Gold Banneret.
Obviously, but
But with that in mind, be prepared in 2 weeks for where Jake Ferrara will be in West Virginia to cover that game. So he'll be doing it then. So yeah.
I'm sorry, Jake. Sorry.
Good luck. Glad to have Jake back out there for another game. By the way, he did a really great job last time.
He did.
He did. No, he did a good job.
But my point remains is that I think a lot of people, even me, I remember that when I saw that graphic, that for some stupid reason UCF still was mathematically possible.
Yeah, see, I told you that was bad. I told you
not
that's when you need to get a life. No, that's where you're just asking for gluttonous punishment. And listen, as somebody who's been a Dolphin fan for 35, 40 years, you get very much used to disappointment. Very much. That's really where this comes from. Is that you just accept what it is. And listen, anybody that's followed UCF football, this is a very typical loss this goes back to the Kruzek years. O'Leary, who's got a statue, had plenty of these losses. I know everybody thinks he's this great coach, but he had these losses too. He also didn't know how to pick quarterbacks either. So this is not a novelty, is my point. This has happened in sports if you follow it long enough. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully next year changes. Case in point, BYU was 3-8 last year, and right now they are.
You know what, Eric?
For now,
Eric, here's my counterpoint to you, though. Matt J had made up a very interesting point. He says that he was done with, quote, the hype machine. Do you feel like the hype machine maybe is a different factor compared to George O'Leary teams, especially considering
they had hype machines during the O'Leary years too? Trust me. They put a freaking poster of George O'Leary for his first year to hype up George O'Leary. Literally, you could have gotten a poster of George O'Leary. They didn't
have Twitter graphics back then, Lopez.
Fair point. Very, very, very legitimate point. I have a poster on my wall of George O'Leary and Kevin Smith hyping up the 2008 season because they won the conference title in the state. There's always going to be hype on football because people love the sport. We're addicted to this sport.
I might have had that poster at one point myself.
I might have to show it to you off the air. Yeah, we'll have to compare. So no, that I don't buy that either. That every year football always gets. The only time there was no quote, even the only time there wasn't any hype for UCF. No, there's always been hype. Even Scott Frost, remember first Frost packed the place in the spring game. Football will always get hyped a lot, and rightfully so. No, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Again, there's nothing wrong. With football having the high expectations that they do. They should. Where I have a problem is when the same people point that towards basketball because they're apples and oranges. That to me is just Johnny gets more grief sometimes, I feel like, than football.
Not lately, am I right?
Not lately, but they're waiting somewhere. I'm sure somewhere in the woods. So we'll see. I have no issues with the football. The expectations should be high for football, and I don't think anybody's questioning that. Is anybody questioning the expectations for football?
I listen.
And by the way, in fairness, this year I thought it was contained. I didn't see anybody say they're going to go 12-0 or they're going to go. I think there were some. Maybe they could be. 8-4.
Well, it's also a matter of learning.
That said KJ Jefferson might win the Heisman came up, but that's about it.
I mean, it's just a matter of learning. I remember last year we're like, oh, we're gonna do awesome, all really great. We're gonna run, blah blah blah. And now this year I'm seeing maybe it's sort of like a tempering of expectations. That's just a gradual thing year after year. Eventually
No, people are gonna get sucked in, man. It's an addict. It's like Jaguar fans. They're all bummed out now. The season's in the toilet. But what's going to happen is Doug Peterson's going to get fired. They're going to bring in either the Lions offensive coordinator or Bill Belichick, and every Jaguar fan's going to be excited once again.
Belichick's not coming to Jacksonville. Stop it.
They should bring in the Lions offensive coordinator.
That might actually happen.
That's what I'm saying. So, but no, football fans, like all these people that are whining on, I'm never going to donate again. Baloney. They're going to be right back, man.
Well, hey, we've had that happened well before NIL, brother. Oh, I'm done with this program.
Yeah, we're done, all right. And then they come back the next year. All it takes is one hire, one player. We're back. People love the sport and the program, and people are just mad. The difference is because social media, people press the buttons now, whereas 20, 30 years ago when you were mad, nobody knew you were mad because nobody knew what you felt like unless you called the person. Like I used to throw my bed when the Dolphins lost to the Chargers in 94 when Stojanovic choked the field goal. I literally threw my bed into the TV. That's how angry I was. Thankfully, there was no social media because that probably would have been filmed back there, right? Yeah. I mean, probably the most bitter UCF loss. I'm trying to think of the most bitter UCF loss I can think of. That's a good question. Let's leave it on that note, on a positive note. Where does this bitter loss ranks for you, Bryson?
If you want, in terms of bitterness, I mean, if the problem is I have to think back a little bit. I really have to think back a little bit.
While Bryce is thinking, I was more annoyed with how the Cincinnati game went alone than tonight's game. So I'm going to leave that at that. But
I'm with you on that. Yeah.
As for it's clearly Navy, right? Like,
that's.
I mean, Baylor was bad. That to blow that lead, that's up there for me. Navy is a pretty good one where if you basically have control of the conference time, but the Baylor loss, the first Big 12 game ever, that's pretty bad. That's right up there.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna say I don't know which Navy game it is, but like one of the Navy games would probably be it for me.
What about the East Carolina game where they just like turned the ball over 100 times? When they had
a little credit to East Carolina for having awesome receivers that game too, though. Like they have guys that are still playing in the NFL.
This is true. I think lost to Tulsa 2012 conference title game. The miracle punt, that was a rough one.
Mm-hmm.
Think about South Carolina.
Lost to Tulsa in 2020.
Yeah, that's a bad one. That was pretty much the beginning of the end for Hypo.
Memphis in 2020.
That was another one. Yeah, where Gabriel did his typical 1,000 yards passing and lost. Yeah,
that's the infamous Quadri Jones and Obarski fight.
Yeah. So what you guys are saying is this is not the first bitter loss we've had in our history. That's what you're saying.
Correct.
No, we're not. But I definitely do feel like that. This because this is the first time it's happened when we're in a power conference.
Sure.
And I feel like that, and I guess I feel like because remember before that, national championship implications were just a pipe dream, just something that felt like a million miles away. But now with not only being a part of a Power 4 conference, but with the expanded playoff.
What playoff? What playoff? Oh, you mean the SEC Invitational with the Big Ten? That one?
Problem with haters, Eric Lopez. They're going to hate.
Am I wrong? How many Big 12 teams are getting in? Uno.
But you still got to win to do it. Anyway, so the point being is that access to the playoff for UCF fans is an actual tangible possibility now. There was a
possibility back then if you played people, but that's all. Let's not even go back there.
Easy, kid. Easy.
Let's not even go back there.
It's much more of a roadmap to it now.
Sure, I agree. Look, you're right. You're 100% right, Bryson. What this expanded playoff has done, not just to UCF, but across the board, it has added more pressure now. More pressure. And Kyle, I love going to bowl games. Don't get me wrong, back in the day. But they have devalued it to such a degree where now it's playoff or bust for a majority of these programs now. It's no longer, hey, it's good enough to make a bowl. And you're absolutely right, Bryson. That's a great point. It is boom or bust, pun intended there. And I think you're right. UCF is included to a degree there where I think, and I don't even think people are saying, hey, we needed to make the playoff this year. I think a lot of people, and I am with one of them, thought that at this time of year, right now, I thought during this episode, we'd be talking about, oh man, this could have hurt our Big 12 title game chances. Or, oh man, if we win this game, we're in the hunt. We're not even in the hunt. And I think that's what people are frustrated. That's a good point, Bryce. It's a very
100%. Yeah. Oh, and listen, I get what you're saying about bowl games versus championships and all that, Elo. Bowl games are a step for a program that's trying to ascend. UCF,
especially mid-majors.
Right. UCF's been at that step and trying to get out of it. And well, I mean, heck, conference champions, granted, in the G5, but nonetheless, conference champions getting to NY6 still matters, because now it's a playoff game, by the way, right? So from that extent, the bowl game is still a step in the process. But to what you're saying, and especially for a UCF that's done it 9 times already, this is why fans are where they're at, is because they've made that step. They want the next one, as fans should.
Especially when they want the next high. Well, especially when they got a sniff of it in 17 and 18 with that win streak, and all that came with that as a result.
But then again, without that streak, we wouldn't be here in the first place, probably.
Arguable for sure.
So that
we'll never know.
Again, it's taking the good with the bad. I mean, heck, would we have had that streak had we not gone winless in 2015 to drive out O'Leary? And
I agree, that turned into a positive. But although in fairness, Danny White got lucky. Scott Frost was not his first choice. You know who it was, Bryson? Kyle knows.
Oh, it's oh God, he was
chopping wood. Greg Schiano. There you go.
No, no, I had Dino Babers in my
head. That's the other one that was reported that was false. Yes. Yeah, that was.
Oh, well, excuse me. I talked to Dino Babers. Cool guy.
But point being is that peaks and valleys. And I think as much as we hoped that we would be at a peak this year, I think everyone was expecting we were going into a peak this year, and the valley was last year. The problem is that the valley apparently is going a little deeper. Not only the valley, but we're going deeper into a valley probably. And so we just kind of live with it. And the climb out of that valley is going to take time. Now, and I think
we don't know that. Again, it's every year. Every year is a different year. A lot of things change.
We're broaching a topic that's a whole pod in itself.
We'll get into that. We've gone 2 hours. We're going to end.
That's why this went 2 hours, honestly.
Don't worry. We're going to do more podcasts later in the year because I still have to. Kyle and I have to argue about the playoff for invitational, the SEC Big Ten invitational. Everybody told me it was going to be more inclusive to everybody. Instead, we're just giving the Alabamas and the Georgias 3 chances.
Vanderbilt has a shot. That's inclusive as hell, Eric.
Yay, little power, little advantage in the SEC. We're going to get into football. We'll get you ready for UCF next. Well, they have a bye, thankfully. So we will not lose next week. That's a lot. Not going to lose, guys. We're fine until 2 weeks for West Virginia. We do have a lot of basketball to cover.
Well, hey, given this team that we know, maybe they might find a way to lose a bye. Come on. NFL people love that joke.
It's a long show. We'll get into men's basketball. They got Florida Atlantic this week. We'll talk some men's hoops. Kyle and I and Bryson still have a huge women's basketball conversation that we discussed for months ago that we're going to discuss, but we have not had a chance to.
I am ready for it, sir.
Is there a UCF team that could win and get some interest? We'll talk some women's hoops down the road. And, oh, by the way, fall ball, baseball, softball, going to go. Men's soccer, Sun Belt tournament, Sunday night, do or die, win or go home. It's real simple for them. They must beat James Madison to keep their season going in the quarters. If they win, they play in the semis, then anything's possible. But we've gone long here, folks. Thanks to everybody that's communicated on the comments and the sections. This was a wild show. We had a little bit everywhere, but we were venting a lot of frustration. It is what it is.
No, this one, Eric.
Long show. That was Kyle Nash, Bryson Turner. I'm Eric Lopez. We hope you've enjoyed this long, episodic episode of Night Shift Live there, of this edition, folks. Thank you. Good night.